we were married. At that point, I was done with school. I decided that I'd skip ahead from the career plan and start the family plan instead. In the meantime, I wanted to be the best wife I could be. When I was growing up, I was taught many skills that some would consider to be old-fashioned. I was cooking full meals by the time I was 10. I knew how to sew, weave baskets, kill a rattlesnake, keep a good garden, and preserve my harvest by canning. When my husband and I got married, I wanted to be able to do all these things for my household. I wanted us to have the very best garden and to be as self-sustaining as we could be, mainly because I loved doing those things. But this almost turned into a competition with myself. I taught myself how to make many things that one would normally buy from the store: ketchup, candy bars, and anything else I could think of. Unfortunately, things didn't go exactly as I had planned after we got married. I forgot about this little thing called money, and that when you are 19, you don't usually have a whole lot of it. In my first book, Little House Living, the Make-Your-Own Guide to a Frugal, Simple, and Self-Sufficient Life, I share how my husband and I went from totally broke to pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps and being able to buy our first home. We'd hit rock bottom, and there was nowhere to go but up. All the trial and error of making things, growing things, living frugally, and everything in between turned into a blog. Because our first home was a little greenhouse on 10 acres and I had nicknamed it Little House on the Prairie, what better name to call the blog than Little House Living? I shared how we were living frugally and simply in our little house out on that South Dakota prairie. My book and my blog featured all kinds of ideas on how to make your own everything, from shampoo to taco seasoning. However, in those first few years of marriage, I was always in a state of anxiety or depression, and I couldn't figure out why. My body wasn't very healthy, but I was working harder at life than ever before. Things should have been wonderful, right? We were working our way toward the American dream. I worked at a small retail store, and my husband worked as a debt collector. In those early days, my version of simpler and slower living was to try to make as much money as we could so we could have the things we wanted: a nice house and a good future. For me, that was the American dream: to have everything we wanted or needed, and to be able to do the things we wanted to do. I still wasn't asking God what He wanted from my life, or if we were on the path He wanted us to be on. I guess I just figured this was a good path, and I didn't see how there could be anything wrong with it. My theory was that if I wasn't working this hard or trying to do all the things I could possibly do, I would be classified as lazy. Growing a family. After about 3 years of marriage, our baby plan wasn't really working out. We had both wanted a big family, but it seemed God didn't have the same plan we had. At least, not the way we thought it was supposed to go. We decided that in the meantime we would be foster parents. We wanted to care for children, and we thought this would be a good way to do it until God decided to make us parents. We had a few short-term placements before our first long-term one. This baby came to us straight from the hospital, which was rare for a foster child through the state. The first time I saw him, I thought he was the tiniest thing I'd ever seen. I was terrified to pick him up with the social worker there. What if I broke him? Of course, I finally held him and felt such an odd little spark between us. Not something I'd felt with the other children we'd had in our care prior to this child. After a tumultuous 13 months with him, we stood in a courtroom as a judge declared him to be our little boy forever. It was totally unexpected after the trials we had been through with him in the state, but nevertheless, God delivered our first child to us, and we were finally parents. Not in the way we had expected, but that didn't matter to us. I remember sitting in the social services office going through the baby's paperwork before court, something all parents must do before they adopt through the state, and having an overwhelming feeling that God did not want us to have children.